Why yes, it's time for another book haul. This will be the last one for a while because my rate of book acquisition this year has been kind of scary. I need to calm down a little bit. But this book haul is special because it's related to a trip I took to see Bree from Stories from the Shelf. It was an amazing trip. I had so much fun. It's actually 1 year since the first time I went to see Bree, and that time we went to the science fiction bookstore. It was amazing. And this year, Bree pointed out to me that Lois McMaster Bujold was going to have a book signing at that science fiction bookstore, so of course we had to go because it's Bujold. So we hung out for a day, we went to a comic store, we went to the author signing, we shopped at the bookstore, we went to the Minneapolis Science Museum and saw mummies. There was a special exhibit of Egyptian and Incan mummies, which was pretty cool because I've seen Egyptian mummies before but never Incan ones. It was a great day. And then to top it all off, like the introverted bibliophiles that we are, we spent the end of the day just hanging out, reading books in each other's company and talking occasionally because that's fun. So let's talk about the author signing first. This is the first time I've ever been to a book signing and I didn't know what to expect, and Bree didn't really know either because it was her first time too. And I'm a little bit socially anxious. I get kind of worked up about what's the etiquette, what's the proper procedure for doing these things, but it was actually a very low-key, informal book signing, which is apparently the way that the Uncle Hugo's bookstore does it. So Bujold was there early, we saw her, we turned in like giggling little people, like, oh my god, she's there, what am I gonna say? So I didn't think of anything intelligent to really say to her, but she was very nice and she signed and personalized our books. Because I already own most of Bujold's books, so I decided to take my Nesfa edition of Shards of Honor as a stand-in for all the Vorkosigan books. It's one of my favorite books in the series and I love the series overall so much. I just thought it'd be a nice copy of something to take with me. She had Penric's Demon and the most recent Vorkosigan book, Gentleman Joel and the Red Queen there. I also got my own copy of Cetaganda, which is the only other Vorkosigan book I didn't own a copy of. This is the mass market edition that Bane puts out. It matches the other ones I have that aren't the Nesfa edition, so they're pretty nice mass markets and all of that. Cetaganda is not one of my favorites in the series, though I appreciate it more in retrospect because Cetaganda and the politics they have with Barayar, which is where the main character Miles Vorkosigan is from, plays into the series a lot more, and it's great world building. But yeah, if I would ever reread it, which I probably will someday, I'll probably like it even more. Not a bad one in the series, by the way, just not one of my favorites. I'm gonna back up real quickly and tell you about the comics that I got at the comic store. This is my first time ever being in a large comic store. It kind of blew my mind. Like I walk in the door and paused a little bit. I forgot to take a picture, but it was really big, and it just confuses me the way that comics are organized with the single issues and the trades, and a lot of things are by publisher rather than by series title or author title, the way I'm used to it being, so I kind of fumbled around trying to find things. I did get 4 trade volumes while I was at the comic store. I started buying Saga. I love Saga. This is by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. Everybody knows about this. It's been around so much on BookTube. So from as much as I love it, I never bought volumes because my library has been really awesome and been buying them. I just got the first one, and I think that the 6th is coming out in July or August. And I will probably start buying them and just fill in the middle whenever I find them. I have Lazarus Volume 2. I got the first volume from Interlibrary Loan and I just really wanted to get back into the story, so I got Volume 2. I'll go back and get more volumes later. I have Descender Volume 2, Machine Moon, which more people are reading now. I thought it was just as good as the first volume, and the artwork is to die for. And then my real impulse purchase was Giant Days Volume 1. A couple of people have been reading this and saying great things about it, and I really enjoyed it when I read it. Very much looking forward to Volume 2, which is already out, and I'm trying to tell myself to not go out and buy it right away, but I may break down and get it. Okay, back to the science fiction bookstore. This time I didn't pay as much attention to the used books. I admit I spent a lot of money on brand new hardcovers and new books that I was specifically looking for, but also impulse purchases because the books are so pretty. When I go book shopping, I go with a list. I know exactly what I'm looking for. I look for those things first. I'm not really great at being a casual browser. That's just me and shopping in general. A lot of people talk about how they go into a bookstore and they could stay there all day, and I get kind of antsy and impatient after about an hour, and I need to get out of there so I don't spend all the money in the world. Just like take me away from the temptation. So I had some specific things I was looking for. Some of them I found, some of them I didn't, and then I just stumbled across some things that I knew I had to get. Two of the things that I was looking for were The Book of Phoenix by Nnedi Okorafor. This is kind of a prequel to Who Fears Death, which is very critically acclaimed, but I've also been hearing amazing things about The Book of Phoenix. It's a Clark Award finalist or nominee right now, and I just really wanted to read it. I have actually started it. As you can see, I have a bookmark in it. I read the first chapter and I'm already hooked. Like, the first chapter was just electrifying. I needed to know more. It was amazing and kind of weird and science fiction-y and fantasy. There's not a description on the back, so I'm not sure how to describe this. It's about a woman named Phoenix. She has superpowers, and she, at the beginning of the story, escapes from Tower 7, where she's lived her entire life. She's only 2 years old, but she has the appearance of a 40-year-old woman, and there are other people like her who have their own abilities, either that they were born with or that they were given by the scientists. And the world, it seems like it's kind of post-apocalyptic. I don't know. I think Okorafor is an amazing writer, a very, very strong writer, and her imagination is amazing. The other one that I was specifically looking for is The Geek Feminist Revolution by Kameron Hurley. This is a collection of her essays on geek culture, feminism, and science fiction and fantasy, being a writer and all that. Many of these are things that she wrote for other places and as blog posts, which you can kind of tell when you're reading them. I just finished reading this yesterday. It was excellent. Because of the original nature of these as blog posts and that some of them cover the same ground, there's a little bit of repetition, which is what kept me from giving this 5 stars, but overall it was an excellent read, really riled up my blood a little bit. And I think it's truly a worthwhile read if you're interested in any of the topics that Hurley is writing about. I think I enjoy Hurley's writing about these topics more than her fiction at this point. That may change someday, but I appreciate what she has to say. I think the cover of this is very iconic. Just the yellow and the red, and of course the llama that has to do with one of the famous essays in this. The cover design is by Jamie Stafford Hill, and all I have to say is good job. Another book that I specifically was seeking out was Dreamsnake by Vonda McIntyre. This is an older science fiction or fantasy work, and I had been passing over this title for years. It's one of the Nebula Hugo Award winners, and I just never understood what it was about, but Catherine read it and reviewed it, and she made it sound amazing, and she's been kind of reading the same feminist sci-fi novels that I have been reading recently, so when she recommended this to me in the vein of those other books and said it was great, I knew I had to look for a copy. This is a pretty old mass market, and I had to go through stacks of books on the floor to find it, and I was like, I triumphed when I found it. And while I was there, I decided to pick up The Moon and the Sun by Vonda McIntyre because I know the name of this, I know it from somewhere, and it turns out from the description on the back, it's set during Louis XIV's court in 17th century France, you know, the Sun King. It's told from the perspective of his sister, and it has sea monsters in it. I don't know, I need to find out more. Next, I bought this Harper Perennial Olive edition of The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. I own the SF Masterworks edition of this, but ever since I saw this, it's just a cute little book. It's just gorgeous. I love the cover, I love the spine. I had to get it. And I really, really love The Dispossessed now. I think it's a book that you are completely justified in having multiple copies of it. And now I may want more of these olive editions. They say limited edition on the back. I don't know how actually limited they are. The cover of this is simple and beautiful, kind of minimalist. It's by Milan Bozic. Just gorgeous. I mean, I literally bought a second copy of this book because of this cover illustration. It's just so cool. So I've been looking at To Hold the Bridge by Garth Nix and thinking about cover art, and all of the new editions of the Old Kingdom books in hardcover, at least here in the US, have this kind of design. It uses the same font, which I think is pretty cool, and kind of has this pattern of symbols around Garth Nix's name, which is always in that box. I never really looked too much at the illustrations in the background, though. This one says the art is by Larry Rostant, the lettering is by David Coulson, and the design is by Tom Forget. So sometimes you have covers like this, I guess, that are an amalgamation of a bunch of people's work. So it's nice that they at least spell out who did what on it. So To Hold the Bridge is another collection. It has a novella in it called To Hold the Bridge, which is an Old Kingdom story, and then all of the others are various non-Old Kingdom stories that have been published over the years. So I just wanted to get this one. I've kind of committed to buying the hardcovers that match in this kind of edition, and of course when Golden Hand comes out later this year, I'll be buying that as well. I also impulse purchased another book by Garth Nix because it sounded fun and quirky and just delightful, and the cover art has been calling to me for a while, and that is Newt's Emerald. The subtitle of this is Magic, Maids, and Masquerades. It is such a fun book. It's Garth Nix's take on those fluffy Regency romances inspired by people like Georgette Heyer and Jane Austen. Apparently, Nix is a real fan of Heyer and Austen, which I think is just so fun. There's an afterword in this that explains that. I love reading that. This book is less than 300 pages. It's about a young lady, Lady Truthful Newington, who is supposed to inherit her family's powerful magical emerald on her birthday. They take it out to show it to her. It's passed down in the women of her family, and while they're just showing it to her, there's a storm, somebody steals it, and then she sets off in society disguised as a boy, as a rather effeminate Frenchman, to find the emerald again. It was so fun. Completely predictable, but really, really fun. And of course, the cover art just appealed to me so much. This was a pick for Gail Carriger's book club a little while ago, which is where I first heard about it. And if you love Carriger's work, you should read this book. It's just so cool. Yeah, the jacket art is by Mary Kate McDevitt, and the design is by Katie Fitch. So, such a beautiful book. War for the Oaks by Emma Bull is an 80s urban fantasy novel that I remember very fondly from my childhood. My parents have been fans of Emma Bull, Will Shutterly, Charles DeLint, Terry Wendling for years, and they always had a lot of books by these people on their shelves, which I would occasionally pick up and flip through or actually read when I was a kid. And War for the Oaks is one of the few that I read all the way through and really liked. And this is a trade paperback edition. It looks nice, but it's nothing horribly special. But this is the kind of urban fantasy that I really enjoy. It's the 80s urban fantasy before you had the ladies in leather with tramp stamps and vampires and werewolves and stuff. It's the less supernatural beasts and more fairy and folk tales and myth colliding with your urban setting, where your characters are the artists and musicians of the 80s kind of grungy scene. I really enjoy it, and that's kind of all that like Charles DeLint is about in his Newford series. Emma Bull has written other works, but this is the only one I've read by her. Specifically, it's about a young woman named Eddie who is a musician in the 80s. Her boyfriend dumps her, her band breaks up, and then she gets caught in a fairy war. So yeah, I had to buy a copy. I found this used, so it wasn't very expensive, and I probably will reread it pretty soon. The last book that I bought, and the penultimate one for this book haul, is Searoad by Ursula K. Le Guin. On the cover of this it says winner of the National Book Award, and I don't know if that refers to this specific title or just to Le Guin herself. It's a very short book, and it's a story set in Clatsand, Oregon, which is a fictional Oregon town. Searoad is the story of a particular place that could be any place, and of a people so distinctly drawn they could be any of us. So probably a mainstream work, but if I recall correctly, some of her mainstream stories that I have actually enjoyed have been set in Clatsand, Oregon, so I'm looking forward to this. The last book that I have to show you is one that Bree gave me because she had 2 copies of it, so thank you, Bree. Thank you so much, because I am genuinely excited about this. And it is James Tiptree Jr., The Double Life of Alice B. Sheldon by Julie Phillips. And it is a biography of Alice Sheldon. She was such an interesting person just on her own, but also one of those controversial, influential, inspirational, and tragic figures in science fiction. And like I said, just as a person. So this is supposed to be a very highly regarded biography of Sheldon. I think it's even known outside of the SFF community just because it's a good work. And I flipped through it a little bit. I read little snippets of it when I was at Bree's place, and it just pulled me in because she is genuinely an interesting person to read about. So yes. So those are all the books that I accumulated from my book shopping trip. It was a lot of fun, and now I need to go read all of these. So if you have any thoughts about these books, if you want to read them, or if you have read them, please let me know down in the comments, talk to me, and I will talk to you again soon in my next video. Bye.